I am from the ASPCA Community Engagement Team. I'm honored to be here with my two colleagues, Megan and Kat, as well, who are going to be introducing themselves shortly. To go over briefly some of the things that we're going to be touching upon today. In general, we're going to be speaking all things pets. The first thing we're going to tackle is pet care in general, things to think about before you make the decision to go ahead and get a pet. And then once you've already made that decision, vet care and grooming are extremely important, which will be the next thing on our agenda. And then I am going to speak to you all about our community engagement program within the ASPCA, talking a little bit about all the services that we're able to provide the community.
I am Megan Carroll. I am also part of the community engagement team. We are going to start off with pet care. So preparing your family for a pet. A pet is obviously a big responsibility. Being prepared for your new pet ensures success. Let's talk about some considerations that should be taken when thinking about bringing a pet home. Everyone at home should agree that you are all ready for a pet. Will the pet be solely your responsibility, or will everyone be helping out? Is anyone at home allergic to dogs or cats? That's something to take into consideration. Are pets allowed at home? Do you live in pet-friendly housing? Make sure you check with your landlord if pets are accepted in your household. If you want to make sure that you will not face any consequences for having a pet when not permitted, having issues with your landlord, threats of eviction, or having to separate from your pet in the worst case scenario. Are you home enough? Dogs should not be left at home alone for long periods of time. This can result in stress, anxiety, destruction of your objects, urinating and defecating inside the home. And puppies need potty training. They need to go out about 4 to 6 hours every day. So that's a lot of responsibility. You can train them to use pee pads if you do need to leave for a short period of time, but they should still be learning to use the bathroom outside and not depend on pee pads. Adults should go outside at least about 4 times a day to relieve themselves, but they should always have at least one walk per day, along with being outside 4 times a day to relieve themselves. So what you should consider when looking for a pet is what is right for you and your family. What is their activity level? Activity level is important to consider when looking for a pet. How often can you and your family take your pet on walks? This question is based on the energy level of a pet. Walks should be at least once a day. Depending on that energy level, you need to go on long walks if they're higher energy. And even if they're a couch potato, it is still very important to go on walks. They need sunshine, just like us, for vitamin D to keep them happy. Socialization, which prevents them from being fearful of strangers and other dogs. When a dog is under socialized, it can be very frightening for them when they have to visit a vet or see a groomer. This could increase aggression, which will make it very difficult for you to have friends or family over, seek treatment at a vet, or get groomed. Sometimes when a dog is so fearful due to under socialization, they will have to be sedated when seeing a vet or groomer. This could be a very high expense for you in the future. They need exercise, which is important for their health. And the number one stress reducer in dogs is smelling. Smelling the outdoor environment is a great way to get your dog's mind working, relax them, and reduce stress. Aside from walks, dogs will still need to go out to the bathroom, like I said, at least 4 times a day, and 6 if they are a puppy. Playtime. It's very simple. Make time to play with your dog. It helps build a connection. Dogs need to be stimulated. This prevents, again, from stress, loneliness, unwanted behaviors, being destructive in the home. It also helps them stay active and stimulate their mind. Large pets. Important to take into consideration if there are small children in the home. Could they accidentally be injured by playing too rough? Are there other small animals in the home or exotic animals? Some dogs may have a high prey drive, and this could potentially cause a fatal accident to a small animal in the home. If so, would the pet be too strong to handle? If you are unable to walk a strong or large dog, consider an easier dog to manage, because again, dogs should be walked at least once a day. Do you already have pets? Some pets may not be able to get along in the same household. Some pets like to be the only ones at home and won't be eager to meet new friends. Are you ready for double the expense? The more pets, the bigger the expense. Food, vet care, grooming, emergencies, etc. There's a lot to think about when you bring a pet home, and when considering these questions, you're more likely to have a pet that's right for you. What should you expect when you bring your furry pal home? Your pet will first be nervous. Your home is an unfamiliar place. Be patient. Allow your pet to explore their new home. Let them settle in. Your pet likely has had minimal training. The changes that they're experiencing may cause them to make some mistakes, some accidents. Your pet may have a potty accident, but being persistent in training, building a routine with your pet will help them with training. It'll create structure, set boundaries, and create a strong bond with you and your pet. The changes the pet has experienced may cause some anxiety and stress. It can take about 2 weeks, sometimes even a couple of months for a pet to adjust to their new home and environment. Over time, their personality will shine through, and patience is key. Where to get a pet? Consider adopting a pet. Adopting a pet is cheaper than purchasing a pet from a breeder. Many pets from shelters, they already come with vaccines, they're already spayed and neutered, they have a city license and a microchip, and that's going to save you a large expense up front. Something that you don't get when buying a purebred dog. Again, there's not going to be the cost of spay and neuter, which spay and neuter can cost you around $300 to $400, plus you're paying for those vaccines, the cost of a vet visit, your dog license, and a microchip. Mixed breeds tend to have less medical problems than purebred dogs. Again, saving you a little less expense in the long run. Some care centers and shelters have a variety of pets. They may have cats and dogs, but they also have rabbits, snakes, turtles, guinea pigs, and even birds. Just note that these are considered exotic animals, which means you would have to see a specific exotic veterinarian, which is usually more costly than a typical vet seeing dogs or cats. So all animals should be free of these 5 things. Freedom from hunger and thirst. All pets should have access to clean food and water at all times. Some pets obviously are on scheduled feeding, but just making sure that that is consistent and that it is in a clean environment. Freedom from discomfort, making sure that your pet has a safe and comfortable environment to be staying in. Freedom from pain, injury, and disease. You want to make sure your pet is comfortable at all times. If you see any pain or experience an injury or are ill at any time, you want to make sure that you are seeking treatment so that your animal is no longer suffering. Freedom to express normal behaviors. This is like going on walks, smelling the environments around them, playtime, chewing, just expressing their normal dog or cat behaviors. And freedom from fear and distress. This is making sure that you are not yelling at your dog, no negative reinforcement like tapping the dog on the butt or anything like that. You want to make sure that you're staying calm, you are training, and just making them comfortable within their home. This is some literature. I'm going to highlight a few things on this page, and these resources are going to be very informative to new pet owners. So first off, we have cats. So it's going to talk about cats and feeding, how often and how much you should be feeding your cat due to its age, its size. Usually on the bag of food, it will list the measurements depending on their weight and age for how much you should be feeding your pet. You want to feed a balanced diet that is cat food specific because it is formulated to have all the specific nutrients a cat needs to stay healthy. It also talks about what foods not to feed. Bedding, clean resting spots and hiding areas for your cat to feel safe or have space for themselves if they may feel stressed. Litter box, change daily. Cats will not use a dirty litter box and will use the bathroom outside of the litter box if so. When cleaning, do not use ammonia or bleach to clean. This can create a toxic gas that can be dangerous to you and your pet. For every 3 cats you may have, you should at least have an extra litter box. Some cats are very picky. They might not want to share the litter box with other cats. Again, if the litter box is not consistently clean, they can be very picky and not want to use the litter box. So we say for every 3 cats, you should have an extra litter box. Consider a microchip. If your cat is an escape artist, a microchip will have all the information for someone to contact you if someone finds your pet. Enrichment, toys, important for your cat to play, to display natural behaviors. This could be like scratching posts, hiding spots, pouncing, stalking toys. It's very important that they have play to keep their minds active. Health, important for their health. You need yearly checkups, vaccinations to protect them from illness and disease, such as common illnesses and disease like parasites, mites, and URIs, or upper respiratory infections. They talk about what supplies might be needed. And for dogs, it's going to talk about feeding is the same for cats. You want to have a dog food for specific nutrients, and then only specific people food, which it will talk about a little bit more. And then again, what foods not to feed. It'll also go into how often and how much, just like for cats. It'll talk about on a bag that you receive, how often to be feeding them per their weight and per their age. Grooming is very important. We'll touch a little bit on that later. Behavior, it's important to spend time to train your dog. This will also help help create a strong bond with your pet. You always want to make sure to keep your dog on a leash. New York City is full of loud sounds that may scare your dog. Other dogs may not be friendly, and there are studies that show that a high percentage of dogs who are not spayed and neutered can actually run away to find a mate due to their hormones. Shelter and bedding. Your dog should always have a quiet, clean, and comfortable space to rest. If dogs are outside for long periods of time, legally they must have adequate shelter or doghouse. They must be insulated to protect them from the elements. And they'll also, again, like cats, talk about what supplies is needed for your first-time pet and their health. Again, yearly vet visits, vaccines to prevent them from illness and disease, such as parasites and heartworm. And it is recommended that all cats and dogs be spayed and neutered for health-related reasons, such as cancers, and to decrease shelter population, overbreeding, and possibly the pet owner becoming overwhelmed with the responsibility of multiple pets. Puppies can be a large expense. It is very time consuming. Sometimes the moms may not be able to nurse, and that would be your responsibility to provide formula and then feed every so many hours. The formula can be expensive, and then you have a lot of dogs to feed as well, which is an extra cost. Now we'll move on to talk about vet care.
My name is Kat, and I'm also a community engagement coordinator here at the ASPCA, and I'll be talking a little bit more about vet care. Just like you and I, our pets need yearly wellness visits with their vet, and this should just make sure that they're healthy and that they're up to date with their vaccines. This is also a good time for them to get their yearly blood work, just to screen for any possible health issues, and it's good to catch things early on. They also need dental cleanings. Believe it or not, it is important for them to get yearly dental cleanings or every few years dental cleanings, and it's important for you to keep up with it yourself. So brushing them, buying those little additives you can put in their water, and you want to make sure to start this early. So as soon as you decide to get a pet, as puppies, definitely get them used to it, because it will avoid any behavioral issues as far as dental cleaning in the future, and it will probably save you a lot of money. Another reason to keep up with dental is because dental issues can become emergencies, and they can also lead to other medical issues in your pet. Lastly, we also want to make sure to keep up with these wellness visits, because if we do find that they do have a medical illness or disease that does require long-term care, being able to go to these vet visits, you're constantly in contact with your vet to keep up with that long-term care and to know what to do and know what medications to give and so forth. Some of these chronic illnesses include diabetes or heart issues, Cushing disease, arthritis. There's many different, but again, it's important to stay on top of it. Let's just talk a little bit about vaccines. And these are just the basic core vaccines that your pet should get. And these are also vaccines that the ASPCA offers. So for puppies and kittens, they do require 3 doses of distemper vaccines. For cats, it's called FVRCP. And for dogs, it is DA2PP. These are just combination of vaccines that are core vaccines and help protect your pet against multiple diseases. I just made a note here that sometimes we do give a 4th dose, and these are mainly for our shelter animals, just because the amount of animals we have in the shelter does increase exposure. So we always want to make sure to give them that extra dose. The other vaccine that they would get is rabies, and normally this is given at 5 months of age, but can be given as early as 4 months depending on the vet. After that, the year after you give these vaccines, as adults, they get them again. And usually these vaccines can be given yearly, but if you stay on top of it, then you can actually give these every 3 years instead. There are some other vaccines that we do not provide, but you can get at a full service vet. And depending on where you live or what activities you do with your dog specifically, there are other vaccines that are offered, such as those against Lyme disease. If you take your dog hiking, it's important to get. There's also another vaccine for dogs called leptospirosis. This vaccine helps prevent diseases that's normally found in rat urine. So technically, yes, it is important to give it to your dogs, given that New York City is full of rats, but this is something that you would get at your private vet. spay and neuter is very important. We do give out this handout that you see, 8 great reasons to spay and neuter your pet. It has a lot of health benefits, but also can save you a lot of money in the future. In particular, spay and neuter helps to prevent unwanted litters. Sometimes with certain dog breeds, the females require C-section in order to give birth, and that can cost you thousands of dollars. The estimate of C-section for dogs is about $5,000. So if you're thinking about breeding, really think about those expenses. Next, spay neuter can reduce risk of life-threatening illnesses. For females, one risk is pyometra, which is an infection of the uterus, and spaying is the only cure for that. For females as well, mammary tumors, breast cancer, every heat cycle that they have increases their chances of getting this. So that's why it's important to spay them early on. And for males, it can decrease chances of prostate cancer. Spay neuter can also help with behavioral issues, territorial issues. Sometimes if you have unaltered dogs in the home, if there's, for example, a male and a female, that can cause behavioral issues if they're not spayed and neutered. If there's 2 males and a female, again, can cause a lot of behavioral issues, territorial over the female, dominance, and can cause dog fights. So getting them spayed and neutered or reducing all those hormones definitely reduces the chances of them fighting. Also can help with unwanted urine marking. So sometimes when they're not neutered, they like to mark their territories. So this is one behavior that you can reduce. This is both in cats and dogs. Accidents and emergencies. We already know that vet care can be expensive. We know that healthcare in general can be expensive for you and your pets. So it's important to think about this before getting a pet. Do you have an emergency plan in place? Do you know where the nearest emergency clinic would be? Do you know if your local vet offers emergency walk-in visits? Do you have savings for these kinds of emergencies? So luckily, pet insurance is out there, and there's a few out there, and it's always important to do your research and see which one fits best for you and your budget. But it's something you want to keep in mind when getting a pet. You want to make sure that you're able to have those savings aside just in case something happens, because you never know. There are some insurances that offer up to 80% or 90% reimbursement of these costs. You just have to pay a monthly fee to have this insurance. Some insurances cover certain accidents, certain emergencies, others don't. One thing you won't really see in these insurances is preventative care, like your wellness visits and vaccines. So that's always something that you want to keep in mind when you have these insurances, that they do not cover preventative care. Grooming is very important. This is a handout that we give to our clients. Specifically, it's on dog and cat nail care. We want to make sure that we're always keeping on top of nail trimming. A lot of times we have seen here, if you don't keep up with it, nails can become overgrown, curl into the paw pads, and cause puncture wounds, cause infections, and that requires vet visits, requires antibiotics, and it can be expensive. So this is just a quick how to trim nails. If you look on the right side, it just shows you the shape of the nail and the part. You want to make sure that when you're cutting the nail, you stop at the quick, which is the pink part of the nail. Now with certain dogs, they do have black nails, so it is hard sometimes and can be scary to cut the nails. You just want to do a little bit at a time. I have a dog that has black nails. I just do a little bit every week just to make sure that I never hit the quick. That just makes me feel comfortable because I don't like to do too much. With dogs, it's important to walk them multiple times a day, and it actually helps with trimming their nails because their nails get grinded down on the concrete floor. So if you're keeping up with dog walks, then most likely your dog's nails will kind of take care of itself. The only 2 nails you want to worry about though are the dew claw, which are the nails on the top side on both front legs. Those obviously don't touch the ground, so those you have to actually clip yourself and keep up with that. Again, if you don't, they can overgrow and they can also grow into the skin, and that can be very painful for your dog. So definitely keep up with that. With cats, obviously most cats don't go outside, so they won't have that option of the concrete floor. However, they have a lot of options as far as scratching posts. There's different materials. There's rope, there's carpet, cardboard. It's important to have multiple options for your cat so that way they can naturally trim their own nails, but the nails can get very sharp. So I recommend definitely doing nail trims a bit more often with cats. Same concept, just make sure to cut right above the quick so you're not causing them to bleed. And if you remember anything, remember to always start doing this early on. But as soon as you get your pet, get them used to you touching their paws, pushing on their little digits to push the nail out. Get them used to this feeling so that way it can make things easier for yourself, and use positive reinforcement. So when you are doing nail trim, offer like a very high value treat. Just reward them every time so that they know that this is a good thing and that they shouldn't be scared of getting getting their nails trimmed. It'll make things much easier for you and save you some money in the future. Next step in grooming is bathing. For dogs, you want to bathe them at least once a month. You don't want to bathe them too often just because you can dry out their skin. Of course, if they have some skin issue and your vet recommended like weekly baths or something, obviously follow that recommendation. But in general, it should be about once a month. And in between, you can use dry shampoo or waterless shampoo specifically made for pets. And then obviously brush them in between as well. For cats, they are known to kind of do their own thing. They groom themselves. They don't necessarily need a bath unless something happens and they're very dirty and they need a bath. But most of them don't really like the water. You'll be very lucky if you have a cat that likes water. And you can also use dry shampoo, waterless shampoo for cats and wipes in between as well. I want to emphasize that it's important to start this process early on so that they can get used to it, and always use positive reinforcement to reward them so that they can associate grooming as a positive thing. These are just some examples of some breeds that are high maintenance when it comes to grooming. So if any of these dogs look like your dog, definitely high maintenance grooming. If you're thinking about getting any of these breeds, just remember grooming is a big thing, and you most likely will be spending money on grooming at least every 2 months, every 3 months, depending on the breed. And brushing will be very important in between these grooms, because if you don't keep up with it, they can get extremely matted, which is very uncomfortable and sometimes painful for them. And I definitely wanted to include this one picture of this cat just because they also require grooming sometimes and brushing, especially when they're long-haired. Even though they do great at grooming themselves, sometimes they just obviously can't brush themselves. So you want to make sure that you're obviously on top of that and making sure that they don't get matted, because if they do, then most likely they'll have to get shaved down. These are just some pictures of some dogs that our grooming specialist has done in the past. As you can see, different breeds here, different kind of hair. Most of them were either extremely matted or getting to the point where they had uncomfortable mats around their body. But as you can see, they look so cute afterwards, and I promise you they're very comfortable and much happier after their groom.
We know that we provided a lot of information there. Hopefully very good for you all in taking care of your pets or thinking about owning pets. So where do we all fit in? That's what I'm going to be talking about now. So again, we are all a part of what's called the community engagement team at the ASPCA. Now you may be asking, what does that look like exactly? For our community engagement team, we focus on these 3 buckets of things. Our first one is our casework, is the foundation of our programming. And then out of that naturally flows our supportive services and the outreach that we do in the community. So you can see some cute pictures of Kat and Megan in action there. Like I said, the foundation of our services that we provide starts with our casework. In order for us to work with a client, they need to be in agreement with receiving our services. This means that it is voluntary, and they need to be in agreement with us visiting their home in order to assess the quality of life of the pet in their natural environment. So meeting those needs that Megan was talking about earlier, access to food, access to an appropriate place to sleep and rest, access to water, things like that. Once we have been able to assess the pet's overall quality of life and look at the environment in which they're living in, we are able to create a tailored plan specific to that pet and that living environment in order to see how we can best assist. We provide support in many different contexts. A lot of things that we come across in our casework are animal hoarding cases where pet owners actually have too many pets and they can't adequately provide care for all of them. We already touched on grooming. Sometimes pet owners have issues with affording grooming services for their pet. We also assist with what we call surrender of pets, which is unfortunately when someone can no longer take care of their pet and they have to give the pet up for adoption. Veterinary care, which we will be talking about. And then we also assist with outdoor dogs, which are owned by people. They're just kept outside, which is legal in New York City, but they do have to be provided with adequate shelter and of course food and water and all the things that they need to be able to live a happy life. And we also assist with what are called community cats. So these are cats that, as you can tell by the title, they live outside in the community and they are not necessarily owned by anyone. And we are able to assist when there is an issue with community cats as well. So where do we receive all of our cases from? Because we're working with individuals or sometimes groups of individuals. Our referrals come a lot from the NYPD. So the police department, we have a very strong relationship relationship with them. Sometimes if they notice that a case is not necessarily criminal, but they know that in order to prevent something criminal from happening in the future, it would be good for them to receive services, they will provide us a referral. We also receive referrals from social service agencies, government agencies, and sometimes just neighbors, citizens, family members who are concerned about an animal wellness issue, and they reach out to us. It is our goal to contact the client within 24 to 72 hours after we receive the referral. And this is, of course, depending on the urgency of the referral and our team's capacity at that moment in time. Now, through our casework, we are really able to provide services to people who unfortunately are going through some of the largest challenges of their entire life. Some of those are with housing issues, so someone who might be suffering from homelessness or domestic violence. In order to assist with that, we really focus on direct services in the short term by prioritizing veterinary care. I'm going to go over some of those examples, but those are things like what we talked about already in our basic vet care, spay and neuter, vaccines, and things like that. We're also able to provide supplies for owners who may need that in that moment. Of course, if somebody is dealing with domestic violence, a lot of times they will have to leave their home and leave everything behind. Sometimes they're lucky enough to bring their pets with them, but that means they don't have food, they don't have water. So we're able to step up and provide support. And we also provide guidance for obtaining what we call a reasonable accommodation. If somebody is going to be living maybe in a shelter environment, or even when they are living in, say, a new home, and for whatever reason, a landlord might not be allowing that person to have their pet, we're able to assist with that. We also are able to provide referrals for services that we're not able to provide. This could be to other human service organizations, even other animal welfare organizations. We try to work with them when we need assistance with several things, including temporary boarding. So sometimes people may be hospitalized due to housing or domestic violence or other issues, and they need temporary boarding, a space for their pet to be safe while they are away. We assist sometimes with that, but we usually don't have capacity, and we would provide a referral to some of our partners. Naturally flowing out of our casework, we have our supportive services. I'm going to go into detail about a few of them. We've already touched upon it a little bit. Now, if any of you have heard of the ASPCA before, most likely this is what you've heard of, our veterinary care that we provide. In New York City, we have our ASPCA Animal Hospital that is in Manhattan, and then we also have our community veterinary clinics that I'm going to talk about in a second. At each one of these places, we provide preventive care and just basic procedures. So these include things like spay-neuter services, also vaccines, and checkups for regular checkups, basic things that your pet may need. In addition to that, we also have what we call wellness days, where we have a vet or sometimes a team of vets that come out with us as a CE team to go and visit owners in their homes. And we really prioritize those that are most in need for these visits, meaning they might have a physical disability that prevents them from being able to make it out to the clinic. So we're able to go meet them where they're at. Criteria for service for the veterinary care: we're not providing attention for chronic conditions. These are for short-term conditions, wellness checkups, things like that. We also only do services for cats and dogs, and it is by appointment only. So this veterinary care, as I mentioned, is provided at our animal hospital that is in Manhattan, but we also have the community veterinary clinics. When we first started out, we just had our location in Manhattan on 92nd Street. While we were able to provide a great deal of support, as you can imagine, New York City is not just Manhattan. So there was a great need outside in the other boroughs, and that is the original thinking for why we spread out and built our community veterinary clinics. So we have one in the Bronx, we have one in Brooklyn, and our newest CVC is in Queens. Now, for each one of these clinics, in order for people to qualify for low cost or no cost services, they need to live in one of these specific zip codes that we've outlined here. So there's specific ones for the Bronx, specific for Brooklyn, specific for Queens. In addition to living in one of these zip codes, the client must show proof that they received some sort of public assistance in order to receive services. And this ensures that we're able to provide services for those who are obviously the most at need. You have the phone number there. If you do qualify and you are interested, please go ahead and you can give them a call at that number. We talked a little bit about about grooming and how important it is. And that is one of the reasons why our team recently expanded into providing medical grooming services for the dogs and cats that are most in need in our community. We have a grooming specialist. Their name is Riley, and they focus specifically on dogs and cats with matting or those at risk of having matting. So when we say matting, we're talking about a little bit like what Kat and Megan touched upon earlier. It's when the dog or cat's hair gets stuck together because of dirt, because of many things, and sometimes it forms clumps, and this can pose a real danger to the pet. It can actually start to cut off blood flow to their extremities, and it can result in amputation or even death, unfortunately, of the animal. So Riley, our grooming specialist, is able to provide these services to be able to prevent those things from happening. They do this through our mobile clinic that we have, sometimes on site in the community, in home. So this is when we go out with our vets. Similar to that, we're able to provide those services in home and on site. Riley goes out as well to our community veterinary clinics to provide services there as well. And since they are part of our community engagement team, in addition to the grooming, sometimes the pet owner needs a little education about how exactly to maintain the cleanliness of the coat of their animal and how to maybe do it on their own. So we also provide grooming supplies. This could be brushes, this could be nail clippers in order to clip nails at home, or even shaving kit as well. Now, I touched upon supply support a little bit already, but this is one of the most frequent services that we're able to provide for our community members. Some examples of things that we provide for our clients on our caseload are things like food for cats, dogs. Sometimes people may have other pets as well. Cat litter, coats, which are extremely important with this frigid weather, leashes, collars, harnesses, which are sometimes safer for our pets to be wearing, bedding for those who need it, and toys and enrichment. So I did write a note here. It is important to know that this is just one-time support that we're able to provide our clients. Unfortunately, just due to capacity, we're not able to continually provide these services, but it's just really to help people who are in need at that moment. The last part of what we do as a community engagement team, as you could tell by our title, we are out in the community quite a bit. We are doing some outreach events with our partners like the NYPD. We do what we call pause and police events, where we go out with our mobile unit and do vaccinations with a team of vets. Sometimes Riley, they're able to be there with us to provide some nail trims or some grooming at the same time. And we are proud to say that last year alone, just through the NYPD events, we were able to vaccinate over 1,200 animals. So we're hoping to increase upon that this year. We also have tabling at community events for partners. So if any of you belong to a different community organization that you think that you would like us to go out there and share the word, and of course share our resources, please let us know. We're always happy to help our partners. Part of our outreach as well is referring to external partners if we're not able to provide the services ourselves. This is through social service agencies or even sometimes government programs. One of the most frequent questions we receive is, if I hear something going on, if I see animal cruelty, or I heard a rumor that someone is doing XYZ thing to their pet, who should we contact? In New York City, the NYPD, the police department, is the one that responds to all animal cruelty, like suspicions of animal cruelty. And then if it is something that they deem as non-criminal and that we can assist with, they will refer it to us. If there's something that is non-urgent, so it's not resulting in immediate danger for the pet at that moment, or it's something that might be able to wait, you should be calling 311. And they, of course, will be able to assess too. If it is an emergency, they'll be able to assist with that. But if there is something that is urgent, meaning you are seeing it happen in front of you, it is in progress, there is a dog or a cat or a pet is in great danger, and you know that it's really needed that they get services at that moment, you should be calling 911. And then on the bottom, we put our email address, which goes to our entire team. It's our inbox, referrals@aspca.org. If it's something that you think we should know about, or you have a question about any of the services that we provide, or you have a referral yourself, you can send it there.